Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speak Your Truth podcast. I'm Kristen Bomas, and we are on a conscious journey to enlightenment. Today, we're going to talk about trust. If you had to say on a scale of 1 to 10 how comfortable you are trusting others, what would you say? And if you had to use that same scale of 1 to 10 on how others trust you, how does that go? So what is trust? Trust is something that is at the core of every relationship you're in. It could be at a 0 level or it could be at a 100% level, but it's in every relationship you have with yourself, with others, with your TV set. Do you trust it will turn on, right? But it's on with everything you do. There's a trust factor in everything. And so in our relationships, it becomes of great importance. And of course, the more intimate the relationship and in the closer circles of our lives, the trust becomes that much more important. So let's talk a little bit about trust and where we can build it, how we assess it and how we don't, and a little bit about where it gets confusing in our relationships. Not everybody on this earth is ready to be trusted. Everybody is here with a different experience, and some people are here to have an experience of not being trustworthy or being partially trustworthy, and others are here to have an experience of being trustworthy completely. And it's up to each of us to be aware of who we are in relationship with and at what level they're ready to be trusted. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the very first thing you need to know is what kind of importance do you place on trustworthiness in your relationships? How would you like trust to be in your relationships in general? And then, of course, specifically with each of your relationships, how important is it in a friend who lives in another state and you have mostly a phone relationship, or you're just playing a video game with that friend? How important is trust in that versus your best friend or your partner in this life? So there are times where trust is more important than others. It's important that we, at some level, trust the cashier, but we don't have to trust the cashier like we would someone who is holding our money for us or has the codes to our bank account. So trust is not the same across the board. What is really important, and I see it all the time, is people tend to give trust out and then they wait to see if the trust is going to be held. That's actually backwards. And everybody does it that way, but it's backwards. As we start to heal within ourselves, we start to see in our trust of ourselves, we start to see where others are able to be trusted and where they're not. And certainly in this life, if we open our eyes and we observe the other person and we're more attuned to the experience we wish to have, we're going to ask questions and participate in experiences with that person. And those things are going to teach us where that person is ready to be trusted and where they're not. So you're with your friend and you're hearing this friend talk about something they did with other friends that was, you're kind of going, well, that's a little odd. Pay attention. Listen to your friends talk. Listen to the people with whom you speak talk. What are they teaching about you? Rather than getting so fully invested in the conversation and then understanding it away as, oh, that was just a night out. Oh, that was just this. Oh, that was just that. Ask yourself, what am I learning about this person in front of me? Are they ready to be trusted across the board, or do they have something small that isn't ready to be trusted? And everybody's on that continuum, right? And so be okay discerning where that person is ready to be trusted and when they're not. And if you're wrong, great. Discerning where they're ready to be trusted is not the same as judging them as untrustworthy in some way. The judgment labels, it limits, it doesn't leave things open-ended. The discernment says, I see that you may not be ready to be trusted, and with compassion in my heart, I accept that in you, and I'm going to work with it and around it and accept it for what it is. And I'm certainly going to trust you where you're ready to be trusted and not put you in a position where you're not ready to be trusted. So the trust in assessing it at the beginning is critical, and that comes from you paying attention to you, watching your intuition, that gut reaction. How do you feel when you're sitting with someone? Does something leave a doubt or an uneasiness in you? Pay attention to that. Don't judge the person because of it. That's not going to help you or them. But just pay attention to that uncomfortable feeling and let it pan out. It may pan out to be that the person was going through a difficult time and they're perfectly trustworthy. It may pan out that you were picking up on an aspect of them that they're not ready to be trusted with. And that's okay. So assess, listen, try to watch the person speaking, open yourself to learn where they're ready to be trusted and where they're not, and understand that everybody's on a continuum. So now we've got this relationship and we know the trust is there in maybe a limited way, maybe not. But how do we build trust if the trust is not as complete as we would like it to be? Well, we have to be sure that the person across from us is ready to build trust as well. And then we start to build. Each of us has our own style of testing the other person to see if they're going to pass a trust test. I hope that's not a game. Because if you're doing that to see them fail, then that boomerang is going to come back on you as well. Don't set up a test because you want to see if they're going to fail. Test so that they can pass. We don't do things with our children so they will fail. We do things with our children so they will pass. And do the same thing. Offer that same understanding to others. So if I'm in a relationship, I may say, I'm going to draw a blank. Are you comfortable picking up the tab and I'll pay you back later? And if they hesitate, I know there's a disconnect in there somewhere. If they say, absolutely, don't worry about it, then I know there's no disconnect and they know that I'm going to be sending them the money. But there are other things that are much more important. It could be, can you watch my animals for today? I'm not going to be home until late, so can you stop by my house and take care of my animals until I get there? And they say yes, and when you get there at night, they're there. And, oh gosh, I was running late. I just got here a few minutes ago. Well, that teaches me that that trusting them to be responsible might have a bit of a loophole. Now, I'm not going to judge them. I'm just going to watch. I'm going to be a little bit more careful in the future. So those kinds of things are tests in their own way, and they're not put out there for the person to fail, but they teach us where the person is ready to be trusted and where there might be some not ready to be trusted stuff. Then there's the other aspect to trust, and that is what happens in a relationship when something breaks down. You have some sort of a, unhappy moment, a bad moment, whatever that means, and you try to come back from that. Honestly, in working with couples and people for many years, I teach that those are the greatest opportunity to define and create trust in a deeper, more powerful and responsive way. Because obviously whatever you were doing before that incident wasn't building the trust properly. I knew a couple, for example, who thought they had impeccable trust because they did everything together, but they never left that cocoon. Everything was together. So they never had to learn about trust when they did things separate because they did everything together. They woke up, they worked, they slept, they ate, everything was together. Then one day, due to family need, they had to be apart for a period of time, and they had interference in the relationship. And when they came to me, I had to understand where they were, what had happened, and they had to wrap their head and heart around what had just happened. And where in some couples it would have ripped them apart, this couple used it as an opportunity to build a new kind of trust, a trust that allowed them to move freely throughout life and to trust one another. Even after this catastrophic event, it allowed them to build a trust that had a greater foundation than what they had prior to the event. So rather than that event being destructive, it was constructive. So trust can always be built if both sides are participatory and willing. And to build that trust ends up being a trust that's built on a more solid foundation because now you know where the trust wasn't and you can build the trust in it. Then there are, as a fourth and final piece to today's podcast, there are times in your relationships where you may have hope. Like if I use the idea of a couple again, gosh, I really hope my partner's going to come home tonight. It's getting late. I really hope they're going to come home. But that hope is about doubt. And that doubt shows us where there's no trust. So it's not about the hope that's going on. It's about the trust. And if we can understand that this is where our trust in that individual breaks down, then we can then say to that individual, I lost my trust in you tonight. I didn't know where you were, and I really doubted if you were going to come home. Please help me to understand what was going on in you so I can also understand how to accept this feeling inside myself. And so you learn about the other and consequently about yourself. Again, as we live in a state of compassion and understanding and acceptance, we understand that each person has their own story, separate from ours. And there are times where there are things in that story that aren't a match. That doesn't necessarily mean that the trust breaks down, but it does mean that the communication must open up in some way. And when it does include trust, it's a wonderful opportunity to see where the trust is faltering in the relationship you have and to build a bigger, deeper trust between the two of you. So we've talked about 4 things today. We've talked about trust in general and how we can use our intuition and our listening skills to really discern where someone is ready to be trusted or not. We've learned that we use tests to build some sort of awareness of trust in our relationships, and not as a game, but in certain things that we request or questions we ask or things that we do together that we watch and we learn. And so there's some trust there. And we learn that catastrophic events can actually build trust rather than break trust down. And finally, we know that there are certain things that happen in a relationship that bring up doubt. And that doubt is because we don't trust. So let me give you another example about doubt, because I don't think I was real clear on that. If my birthday is coming up and I say, gosh, I really hope my partner, buys me this, plant for my birthday. I've been waiting for this plant for, ever, and I really hope my partner buys me this plant for my birthday. And I really want that. So there's doubt in that, right? And we don't tell our partner because we think that spoils the fun. But if we tell our partner what it is we want as a gift, that partner learns to trust you to teach, and you learn that you can trust her or him to listen and to respond beautifully. So that trust is being built. Whereas with the hesitation and the doubt, if we do nothing with it, the test is a test of failure, not a test of success. So listen for the words hope and the words want. I really want this person to do this. I really, really, really do. Those carry doubt. And so if in fact they come up in your relationship in some way, ask yourself in that doubt, am I faltering in my trust? Because that's the most important piece of that puzzle. So I want to thank all of you for today. I think trust is a critical piece of our lives. We can't have intimacy. We can't have open relationships. We can't grow without trust, because we must trust in ourselves, in life around us, in the people around us. We must trust in the rhythm of life, that we're always going to land on our feet, that all that happens is for our greatest good. How do we do all of that without trust? May each of you trust in this life, and in that trust find the fluidity and the abundance of all that it has to offer. Enjoy yourself and your relationships. Thank you for joining me today on Speak Your Truth podcast. And remember, I'm on Facebook Live every Monday and Thursday at 1:45. And you can catch my website, KristenBomas.com. Learn so much more. Thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful day.